Okay, good day people. This is another JavaScript tutorial, JavaScript 111. And in this class, we'll be looking at classes and objects. So in order for you to understand what classes are, you need to first know what are objects, what are JavaScript objects. Before now, one of the classes we talked about JavaScript objects. And I'm sure, many of you remembered or not, because we've not been referencing to the object as the case may be. So let's go ahead and look at how an object looks like, a typical object. And by the way, all these things we've been working on, elements, get elements by ID, when we return elements, that element itself is an object. Every element on the page that you're working on is an object. So let's say we have an object. An object declaration is done by this curly bracket. This is how you declare an object in JavaScript. So when you do this, you have this effect. This one gives you this result. This is how you declare an object in JavaScript. Now, what's the purpose of an object? What is objects meant for? Why do we need objects? The purpose of object is to encapsulate other functions and more of like cleanup, more of like data management, a proper way to manage an entity, a proper way to manage a function. So look at a car, for example. A car in real life is an object. And everything you need to do for a car or to do on a car is on that car. If you want to start that car, you don't need to go to another place to start that car. Within that car, you will start it, right? Just need to put the key into the ignition and the car will move. That is what an object is all about. Objects should be able to handle themselves and do what they need to do with themselves. Look at elements, for example, the elements we've been using all this while when we do get elements. From that element that we have, maybe let's say a paragraph, you get a paragraph element. That element is an object that allows you to be able to manipulate its own properties. You've been doing that all this while. We've been changing the background of a property. We've been changing the position. We've been changing properties that has to do with the object. That's the advantage of making an object. So you have to have that in your mindset, that why do I need an object? Is because you want it to be a whole. You want it to be a thing that you can move around and play with and use whenever you need it. So if you want to work with a car, once you have a car, you have everything solved. Imagine you have a car, you're going to Abuja. What you just need is a car, and then you get to Abuja. So now the same thing with the tool we've been working with. If I need to do anything, I need to change the display property of a particular section. What I need is just to get the object. Once I get the object, once I get the element, I'm good to go. I can do anything with it. That's exactly how I want you to think about an object. So the purpose of an object is to put all the property that relates to that object together such that you can use it when you need it. Okay, enough of the theory. Let's get to work, and we're going to use something that we can relate with. You are the programmer, so you can define what it is that you want, that you want your program to be able to do. So what I think we are limiting our system to do is to specify the name. So we're just limiting our car to just have these many things. We don't want to go and build the whole car in itself. So you say the name. So we have other things we can specify about the car. So these are like properties of what the car has. Then let's say engine. So this can determine the speed, maybe 500 horsepower. So let's assume the system already knows that is in horsepower. Let's assume all cars are in horsepowers. So when you say engine, when you put the number there, it knows that that's the number of horsepower we're dealing with. Remember this, we already dealt with this before, but I need to refresh your memory because we are going into class. What I want to show you next is methods or functions. Remember I said that a car, you can perform operation on it. The same way you perform operation on elements, right? There are things you can perform on it. The same thing you are supposed to be able to perform operation on an object. So we can say the car should start and we turn it to a function. So what you are looking at now, you already know what 1 to 4 is all about, is setting properties. Well, the new thing I just introduced is ability for you to perform a function on a particular object. So that object car means car can now start. So let's console log and see what happened. This is just a string just to show what is going on. So if you then do car.start, do you see what happened now? Automatically now, car now has the ability to start. You are the God here. Programmers are like God. And what we've done is that we've created something to bin. We created a car that can move or that can start. Immediately you do car.start, it should move. So, well, you will get to see the physical manifestation later. So when you do this, do you see what it says? It says, I'm moving, right? So if you want to program a real life scenario of car moving, you can do that and it will move. By the way, we're going to do that in this class. We're going to do a physical car moving. So it gives you that picture of what's going on. And because it has a specific horsepower, you can determine how fast it should move by looking at the property of the car. Okay, that said, the purpose of this object as it is most of the time is for data management, right? Remember when we did an algorithm and data, we talked about the kind of data we have, we talked about array, and we talked about array and objects, what objects is used for, for managing data and whatnot. Now let's go into class. What is class? Classes are templates for creating objects. Look at what just happened here. We created this object, but what if we want to have more cars? In the sense that I want to be able to programmatically create a new car, and this time around I want to change the car to a Lexus. What do you think I will do? I will do like this. I will then say car 2, and I will start all over and call this Lexus. And then I will say maybe this my Lexus is white, and I will then change this and I will do this all over again. Now, do you see the pain this will cause? Because now I've defined a car called Jeep. I now have to create this whole thing all over again, and then I'm calling it car 2 to hold my Lexus. This is a pain. What class allows you to do is to define a template. In printing press, you have this template, right? Whereby you define what you want your object to be or your printout to be. So look at this object as a printout. So objects are like a printout that was removed from a template. So what is a class? A class is a template. What is an object? An object is a finished product of a class. That is if you are implementing it by class. Object can just stay on its own. You can have a printout on its own without a template. And evidence to that is you just open up your system and you do Microsoft Word and you print it out. There was no template. You started from scratch. But what if you want a template? You want to do a t-shirt of 10 million t-shirts. You need to have a template so that template is what is going to be recreating those t-shirts that you want. And that's the problem that having only objects causes. It means you have to have this kind of code everywhere. But with a class brings template to it. And we're going to show you the syntax for creating class. And we're going to use the same example. Now, how are class written out? How do you write your class? Remember, class are templates, meaning you have to first create them before you do something else. So now that we decide that we want a car and we want a template first, so you then need to create a class. The syntax is like this. You define the word class and then followed by the name of the let me just use this one as car1 so that we will not run out of name, or I'll call it object car. So I don't want to use the same name for it. So this one now, because we want to create a template for car, so we'll call this class car. So I'm writing the syntax out now and followed by curly brackets. So this class is a keyword now. So I've introduced a new keyword, and that keyword is called class. And the purpose of a class is to create a template for us to have more objects. And the next thing I will have to put is called a constructor. So a constructor is a way to create a default parameter for when you create an object. When a class is being created, they will need to have a default way they will look like. And that default way is being put inside what we call a constructor. So the next thing that follows is a constructor. And it's not required, by the way, you don't need to have it. So when you have that, you have your constructor, then you can pass a parameter of what it is that you want to define by default. And the thing we are defining by default is that you want to be able to know, for now, let's just say the name. So to specify the name, we're introducing another keyword now, and that keyword is called this. What this does is that you are specifying that when you create the object, use the word this to specify that you are specifying on the class. So this is another keyword. The next thing we want to specify now is this. So we want to be able to specify the name. This.name is equal to whatever name that you call it. So by default, because the class is a template, you cannot say Jeep here because the class is a what? Remember what a class is. It's a template. So you can't give it a name by default. The name has to be given when you are creating the object for the first time. So we'll talk about that. So the name can be here. By default, I'm making it blank. You can specify what again? You can specify this.color. We'll make all blank and I'll show you how to update them automatically when the class is created. Then the next thing is ability for you to define a function that the class you have. Look at now, you've defined a class. This is a class already. Let's go ahead and initialize this class and see how to use it. How do you use this class? Remember how we use this one? We have to go ahead and create this guy. How do you then create this guy? To create this class, you just need to say, you use it like this. You declare it like a normal variable. Let your new car is equal to, you use the word new keyword. There's now a keyword now to denote that you want to create an object from a class. So when you use the word new, you can then go ahead and say car. So this will create a car for you. But this is our new car. You can then specify what it is it should look like. Remember that when we were doing this for the first time, you were able to, by default, you had to create all this. So now, simpler, you can do this way. So to complete this one, before we print it out, to complete it, you can specify the default thing of the car by specifying their names in the parameter. So look at the car here, the constructor goes in here. So I can specify the name of the car, the color, and the engine by default when I create the car. So I want to be able to specify the name. So I can call it Jeep. So if I specify, it means the first value is the name here. Then I want to be able to specify the color, green. It means the next thing I want to specify here is the color. Then I want to specify the horsepower. Let's say 600 horsepower. Then it means I can specify horsepower here. Let me just call it HP. Now you can see that this is being accepted as a parameter. This is looking familiar, like a function, right? So this function now accepts three things. So what that means is that all these things I have here can also enter the class and create the object. So what that means is you can now put this name here to be the name here. This color can be this color here, and the horsepower can be the horsepower here. Let's create more than one car. So I'll say car 1. Remember how we create multiple cars here? The way we created multiple cars here was to just duplicate this entire thing, and that was so stressful, right? We have to copy and paste and then start changing all the parameter here. So, but imagine we have a template, which is this template, and you want to create the next car now. So the next car is car 2, and this time around we say it's Lexus, and we say it's white, and we say it has 670 horsepower. So let's go ahead and console log this one and this one. But when we console log, I want it to print something for us so that we can see. So you don't necessarily need to call a function. You can console log the object and you see the structure of everything. So let's console log these three things we have. So we have our car 1, we have our car 2, and then we have the one that is just an object. You can see that this one was created like an object variable itself, while this one was created from class. These two were created from class. Let's run them and see the difference that they have in them. So if you run this there, so we have an error in our HP here. I didn't use the this keyword. I didn't use the this keyword to specify that. So the this keyword is very important. The this says that the name is a property of a car. The this says that the color is a property of a car. The this says that the engine is a property of a car. That's the purpose of this. It's the same evaluation for this. You don't use this in this declaration. You use this when you're using class. So let's run the code again and see the results that we have. Now watch closely. You can see the first car well declared and everything is okay. You can see the second car like that, and then you can see the third one that was done using object notation. This one was done with objects. You can see the difference that they have. So the advantage, as I've mentioned, of using a class is that you can use it to spin up multiple objects and then use it and do whatever you want to do with it. So let's go ahead and see how to declare a function in a class, like how to make your class have a function. It's as simple as like this. Just we have a constructor. So what do you want to implement? You want to implement start, like let's start the car. So I will say start, and the start goes like that. You now have your function. So I just want to say, I want to even say the name of the car that is starting. I will say console.log and says my color car name is starting. Okay, that one is better. So what this means is that you can easily call this function start whenever you create this car. Now look at this car 1, car 2, we've created them. They have different properties. And I can go ahead and say car 1, oh yeah, start. Car 2, you too start. Car object of car, of course, it has its own start too. Him too, it can start. But you know the difference. You know why, these other methods are better, because you can see how easy it is to spin up new objects. Very easy. Just one line, you spin up a new object. So let's run that and see what we have in our results. Let me use the normal variable declaration. On running it that way with this one, I removed the other one that we have. So you say my green Jeep is starting, then my white Lexus is starting. So that shows you that, it has that object there. So that's the advantage of having a class. However, this is an introduction class. I'm not going into details about what a class is all about. This is a overview of class, and I have to talk about class so that you will have this rounded knowledge of what is happening. Class is a concept of object-oriented programming, and what object-oriented programming stands for is the fact that everything is an object, and as an object you need to have a property, and then you need to have methods. Let's go ahead and do a physical manifestation of all these things so that we can at least have something fun to. So like I said, we want to design a car. We want to make the car move, just to show you the object method and what is going on. Let's go ahead and say, so I have car container. So that car container is just going to house the whole car thing. And I have car top. The idea is that the top of a car, I'm just breaking the part of a car, then I have car bottom, right? The top part is where you have the window, and the bottom part is where you have the tires and the body. So let me put it in a way where I can see everything and see my result at the same time. So let me split it at the bottom. Let's do car top. Let's say the width. So the next thing I want to do is to put the window of the car. This is the top of the car. There's also the bottom. But while talking about the car, there's what we call the, I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned this in CSS, but you can do what we have before. So inside your CSS, there's before and after. So when you have this content, right, there's something before it and after it. You can actually style the before and after. So it gives you two extra things to style, even though the physical manifestation of that thing is not showing. So I can style before and after. That's what this one is talking about. But I want to style before to look like this. To have, by default, you have to start with content of blank, to start with whatever you want to be capturing. Then I want to put a background, because what I want to do now is window. I want to provide a window. So I'll float this to the right. So it creates a kind of window, but that is too much. I think that's all for the top of the car. So those are the two windows on the car. So let me go ahead and deal with the the bottom of the car. So the same effect that this one has, our car, and that's this bottom side. So this one is the top of the car, then the bottom, let's go ahead and do the bottom. Let's go ahead and put the tires so that we can move away from here. So the same way we put this two window, you can put the tire too like that. So the next thing we want to work on now is that I want to write a code that will make this car move without using objects. Just to show you, the purpose of all this is to show you objects and to make you appreciate objects and what is going on in all these things. Now the next thing is, you know that I wrapped everything inside this guy, inside this container here. Car container. This car container is supposed to be the guy to move everything. So let me say car handle. So this car handle, I make it an ID because I'm gonna have one of it in the entire app. So car handle, and yeah, I can come here and then car handle, and you're gonna see what's gonna happen. So my car handle, I want to change the position to be absolute. When the position is absolute, you can then use your left and right to control it. So if I say left, do you see that the car is moving? Do you see that the car is moving by just changing the left? Obviously, you know that by going to code now, you can automatically change the left and make it look as if the car is moving just by changing the left part, you know, it will be moving. So I just want to show you that you have to put the position to absolute so that you can use JavaScript to, you know, make the left to move. So let's go ahead and go to JavaScript. You are done with your CSS. You are done with this part of the code. Another thing you can do is, in fact, let me make this a class. I have a reason why. So let's go ahead and go to, let's go to JavaScript. The last class we introduced window objects, and the purpose of the window object is so that I don't attach it to a particular element. You see all this guy from top to bottom is window. The whole thing is the window. There's also the document object, you know, but I want to use the window. So the window can receive your click event as well. So it means you can click on the window, and we can then put our function. And the function is that once you click, the car should move. In fact, you can do it that the more you click, the car should be moving as you are clicking. I'm sure you guys are listening to the click event. Or you can use it on press. Once you press forward, the car should be moving forward. So anyone, you know, that rock your boat is what you can just put in there to just make it fun. Yeah. So what we want to do now is that we want to be able to obviously get the car. So you know what you are getting now. Remember that is the handle you are getting. You are getting the handle because this handle is what controls the car, not the top, not the bottom. Is this handle. So, but it's a class. Yeah, I know you can do that by class name. By class name, we get array of those classes for you, all the classes. So query selector will get the first one he sees. That's what query selector will do. Style left is equal to, I want to do, whenever I click, I want to increment I++. So on my click, it should increment I++. Let I is equal to 1. Plus 5. So I'm incrementing by 5 so that anytime I click, it will add 5 to this and the car will move, you know, by that number. You can see as I'm clicking, do you see what's happening to the car? The car is moving. The next thing I wanted to do was to create an object out of this. Remember what you are doing here is that you're just manipulating this. You guys already know this. What I'm doing now, you already know this. I want to bring in the class to bin. All these things I have now, I want to create it. It's not existing. I want to design it with objects. So I will keep the structure of what it has to look like. I will keep it like this so that I know what it is it has to look like. And this class will just be part of our design of the JavaScript. It's an extension of our JavaScript, right? We know that we have this class in the back of our mind. We want to create an object car with JavaScript. You need to also know how it will look like in HTML form first, so that you can use JavaScript to build it. Imagine we want to create more cars. You know, what are we going to do? We're going to do something like this. I don't want to waste my time to position it. You know, we're going to create something like this and start changing the car. Do you get? We're going to start changing the car. Okay, let's say this car now is red, orange. We're not going to start changing it. But you could do this with JavaScript and program everything, you know, easy and nice. And that's what we want to achieve right now. We want to see how we can make JavaScript do that for us. But don't forget our templates, the way our car must look. This is the way our car must look to build it up in our JavaScript. So our JavaScript, you know, made use of those things. So where do we start from? Let's create a class. Remember that we're not just using, we're creating a class object. And we say class definition is done this way. And we have our car. We need to have a constructor that we assign, let's say name and color, just to be fair. Name and color. Then the name is equal to whatever has been passed here. This argument is what is coming here as the name. Then you repeat the same thing for the color. Now that you've just done that, the next thing you can do is to then write a method that either build the car or do whatever you want to do with the car. Remember what I told you about what a car is supposed to be. When you have a car, you can do anything. You can go to Lagos with it. You can go to Abuja with it. And that's the idea, that whatever car you are building, it should be able to do whatever it needs to do by itself. It doesn't need anybody's help. It shouldn't need anybody's help. And this is not just car we're talking about. It can be other things. When you are building an object or a class, the class, you know, should do all the things it's supposed to do within itself. By the time we do the game we wanted to do, there might be other things that you want to do within your app. This is just a car. It can be road. If you are building a road object, the road object should have what it needs to do by itself. Road and car are different. So you can't build a road inside a car. So you put a road object separately and you interact with them when you need to interact with them. Let's go ahead and build other things that we want our car to do. We can say from here, the car can be initialized, because when you create the car, when you initialize the car, when you do new, this part of the code is executed. You can say when this code is being executed, create, very important, create this thing we are seeing here, create it, hold it up into the DOM so that you can pass it across in the system. Let's create this stuff. And this time around, I'm going to use inner HTML. Okay, so let me call it the body of the car. So this is the body of the car, right? And the body of the car is now all this. This is going to be the body of the car. I can build this in the way we've been building it, create elements, create this. But again, you guys are getting advanced and you should be knowing other ways of doing all these things. So what I want to do now is that I want to convert this. So I'm just copying and paste, removing all the double quotes. I'm removing all the double quotes here, changing it to single quotes. And so that I can then use double quotes to surround this one and pass this in a single line. So I'm going to explain what I just did here. So what I just did here is to have this one. I just have this. I pass it into the body of the car. A variable, by the way, I just create a variable and call it body, because I want to be able to use this body anytime I need it. I want to be able to use it because I'm a class. I have a class. I need to be able to know the structure of how the car is going to look like. So what is holding the structure of the way the car is going to look like is inside body. so that I can call another method and say build the car for us. So I'm creating a function that says build. So the build is going to build it and dump it on the document for us to make use of. It's not going to dump it. It's going to make you're going to make use of it anywhere you want it on your window, but let it build it for us. And I'm looking at how the build is going to look like, because I want you to be able to make use of the handle and use it anywhere you want. So the build is going to return an element so that you can use it wherever you want to use it. So we're going to create a div that has an handle. We're going to use the name to create the handle. Let's use this name to create the handle of where this thing is going to be wrapped around. So let's create a new element and say, you want to ask a question? So
yes, sir.
Okay.
This build, is it a keyword or what?
It's not a keyword. It's not a keyword. It's not a keyword. What I'm about to do is a method that just builds a car. So you can call it anything. So there are so many things that you are going to be making use of by yourself. You see name, color, body. It's all you. It's all you. You understand? You are the one that is creating these things yourselves. So, you're the one creating all these things yourself. So I'm going to create build. And the idea is that I want to say build, it should give us the handle so that we can inject it into the HTML DOM itself. So when I say it should build, it should return this thing for us as an object, as an HTML object by saying, so see what I'm going to do now. I'm saying it should return, in fact, let me say, let's make sure that the ID, because it's important so that you can manipulate whatever you want to manipulate with this div. But it depends. You can say the ID should be this name here. You can say the ID is equal to this.name. Then you can then return the handle. You are now returning an HTML element so that you can be able to, you can see what's happening. The method car build is returning HTML div elements. That is what it's returning. So look at it very well. What I just did here was able to, so we didn't even put this body inside this. So let's put the body inside it. So we now say that handle dot inner HTML is equal to this dot body. So let's go and make use of this. This is just class, so it's not an object yet. So let's assume we now want to remember this guy is blank. This guy is blank. And we want to start building our app. First of all, you want to know where your app will be. Let's create a div game app. You can just call all these things, just coin name for them, game app. And the idea is so that we can inject our new card that we create inside our game app. So this can be a background for your app or your game. So it's like an entry point. So we'll have it by ID there. Then you can do, so you can then do new. Let this new not confuse that new. So you can do new. New is a keyword and it's used to create an object from a class. So what's the class name? It's called car. And it requires some parameter. It requires that you specify the name of the car, Lexus, and the color, red. You will see how we can use this property to change the color. We can know that the car is red by default, so we can use this color to change the car color later. But let's first even bring it to life, because right now it's not alive. Before the car can come to life, you know that you need to build it. So building will bring it to life, and when you build it, you can put it inside your game app. So you can do game app dot inner HTML is equal to car dot what build. It's returning an object, but this one is accepting a string. So you can use append. Remember the append guy. Append child. The child requires you to pass in a node, and this also can serve as a node. Car.build can also serve as a node. Let's use also horsepower. That will affect our speed of the car, right? So I will say the horsepower by default, instead of engine, is 10. Then when we are creating it, we need to specify the horsepower. Let me say 10 or 19 there. Okay, so let's go ahead, because this horsepower will just say how fast the car should go when you press it once. So let's declare another function that says move. And what denotes the car from moving is by changing the left position of the style, and everything is now inside handle. Yeah, I think everything is now inside here. So we can safely pick whatever was built and change the style. We should be able to change what was built and change the style, or either add this handle as part of the property. So any one you want to do, you can do. So if I implement, just to show you that this one is working. Okay, we already know how that one work. Console.log. So I can do moving. So once you build your car and append it, you can come here and just be moving your car any way you want, and the car should move. So the idea is that we should have moving there. So because you call this, it says moving. So the element itself can be gotten by this ID, which is the name. The name happens to be the ID. So I concatenate the £sign plus this, and then I get the item inside our EL. So I can then do, I should then be able to do el.style.left is equal to 100. So definitely this will work. The problem is the styling. So el.style.position absolute. So that was the problem. We've created a new element, and the new element is called the name here, and by so I then need to move it by this. Now you can then specify how often, how much you want it to move by saying move by, you know, this number of steps. Now you are now providing parameter into your move method. So you can say this guy can move by the number of steps that you want. So you can plus this together, px. Okay, so it's responding now. So I can say 1, 2, 3 like that. What I want us to introduce is a way for us to be able to change the color of the car, because we want to be able to add more than one cars to what we are doing. Let's go ahead and see how that will be done. We are going to alter the state of the HTML. So I want to give you a visual representation of what we have. So I'm going to remove this and present this to you. And this way, it's going to show you how I want to bring in the color into the system. So for me to bring in the color, I want to add the color inside the handle. So let's say I have red here. So this is how we will be able to define the colors. So if I say I have red here, this red should update the color, the top part and the bottom part of the car. That is the purpose of having red here. So you could actually specify yellow, and yellow can be the color once you specify what it is here. This is the structure I want us to use going forward. So let me change this to red and program it for red. And let's see how we can use the style to achieve this. We're going to watch red and watch anytime we have red as a class that has a child class called car top and car bottom, it should change, the styling to red. So we can then go and style our red. We're going to start for all colors that we know we want to use. So I'm going to come here and do, this means direct descendant. So we can just remove it. Then if I come here, you can see that the color is black now. If I add it to here, it then shows this color. So we can repeat this for the bottom and we're going to remove the color we added to the bottom. So this now becomes what we use to define the color of our car. So I'm going to add a couple of more colors. Just let's go ahead and add more colors. And you can test your results before we go to the code. So if we do green, we expect that color there. If we do blue, we expect this color here. That's the way the car is supposed to be built. So by default, we can make the car have a default color. That's another thing. To make it have a default color, it means you have to style your car top and your car bottom by default. Another thing is that this overriding we are doing because we are using this one to override the default color. So that happens, that needs to come at the end of the normal styling that you are doing. So I need to copy this, or else the color would not be overridden. Then I will come to the end of our declaration here and add those color there, so that once you come to this place and do red, the red will take effect. Once you do green, the green will take effect. So when you create a car without those color, it will come in gray. Then you need to paint it. So we can come in here and bring back our game and remove this so that we can go and implement. Now we want to make use of the fact that we've defined red here. We want the red to come to play. The way to do that is to inject the red into our car handle here. So if I do red, obviously the red will come out. If I do green, then our green will come out. But we want to make this dynamic such that once we are passing it inside here, it will just work. So I'm using this back tag here so that I can put all my code inside. So I'm putting my normal HTML inside here. So this is clear like this. Then remember how we can put in our variable. So the variable we want to put in here now is this dot class, or rather color. So I think this is more readable. This is readable for you guys. This should be readable. So if you want to dynamically pass anything here, you can actually pass it here. The next thing we want to do now, we've been able to define this Lexus to be this. The next thing I want us to do is to be able to create new car. So let's go ahead and create new car. And I call this Lexus. Then let's create a new car and call it Jeep. Jeep can be red. So we can't see the car because we've not added it to the game board. So to add the car to the game board, we do jeep.build, and you can see your two cars there. The reason why you have them line by line is because, of course, it's building on the same place. You can also set a kind of a system in such a way that it will keep adding your car at the bottom. So we can create a kind of system whereby these guys will have their lanes, so that we can have one lane on top, one lane on the bottom. We need another class for road because our car cannot just be on the same lane. So we don't want to put a lane property inside the car. Those are two different things. Car and lane, or car and road, they can be in the same place. Even though we could implement it outrightly, you can do anything you want, but it won't just be like that logically. It won't make sense logically to have a lane inside your car. So we can go ahead and create another class and call it road, so that in our new road we can do constructor. Of course, you're going to just have only one road. You won't have multiple roads. In just the road, you have lanes, right? Those are the things you're going to have in your roads. A lane will have more than one lane, just one lane and two lane, lane 1 and 2 lane. So let's say the first lane is equal to, want to create an element, create element, and it's div. So by the way, this is the car coming in. This is the car coming into the lane. Then we can say our lane dot class name. We want to be able to define a class for the lane, and the class is what will start the position of where the road will be. So this can be lane 1, as the class name, we're going to define this in the CSS so that we can then do lane.append child. So what are we appending? We're appending c.build. So what that means is that the road is going to build our car. The next thing we want to do is to return everything we've done. That's L. So we can duplicate this and create two lanes. So this first one is the first lane, then the second one is the second lane. And we'll have this change to 2. Let's go ahead and see the implementation of our code. So here we create our new road, and we say that our road first car lane, let's say our lane 1 would then be road dot lane 1. What will be inside lane 1? We want our Lexus to be in lane 1. Then we can do the same for the second vehicle. That our second vehicle will be in lane 2, and we'll specify the lane 2 there, so that at the end of the day our game can now be added. We can append child elements. So what are we appending? We're appending lane 1 and lane 2 onto the game. So we're adding lane 1 like this. So anything in lane 1 is brought here. We can do the same thing and also add lane 2. So we have both of them on the same line. The reason is because we've not gone to style our lane 1 CSS. So let's go ahead and start what lane 1 should look like. So lane 1 should look like this. We want position to be relative. We want stop. So you can see that that is already changing position. So you might not even need to style lane 1 anymore, but just in case you want to have more than one lane, so you have it there. And maybe you want to make it a kind of, say, side by side. So let's style lane 2 to be that, so that it can look something like this. So let's do 100. Okay, that's fine. So that when the car is moving by the left, you can see something like this. So it will look like this when the car is moving. So let's remove that. So that forms our lane 2, and we are done with that. This is how our new code should look like. So at any point you can then decide that your Lexus should move by what? 200. You can see that our Lexus car is moving. It's moving. So I want this to move based on, so we want to automate this one now, and we want them to move based on the speed of their horsepower. I want to put the two cars in a drag race and say when I move 100 kilometers, let's see how fast, who is going to win first, who is going to move first. So I want to do that now. Table our move function and go ahead and write something very interesting so that you can see our car move. I want to introduce a new function now, and that function is called set interval. What set intervals does is that it allows you to perform an operation in every seconds or milliseconds, or depending on how many times, but it's going to do it forever. For now, we are going to put another video for that. So we're going to put out another video for set interval. But what we're doing right now is to just, when I say move, it should just move. We want to test a drag race that will run forever. Okay, so I say I have a function, or a function called set interval, and these set intervals work with other functions. We might not have time to look at that for now. So these set intervals accept two functions or two parameters. The first one is what you want to be performing every seconds or every interval. At what is the thing you want to perform at that interval. So you can put in a callback function here. That's a handler, a function without name. You put that here, and followed by the number of seconds that you want that function to run, consistently. So we're going to put let's say 100 here. I think that is like 1 milliseconds or so. Then we can go back and write our function. So you put the function without name, and then you provide your code base. So whatever you write here, inside here, will repeat continuously, every, I guess this should be 1 second. Every seconds will repeat continuously. So what I want to be able to do is that I want to be able to keep moving the car continuously until we are fed up of moving the car. So the car is going to be moved not based on the steps I want it to move, but based on the horsepower. So whatever horsepower that you have will determine how much you will move faster or thereabouts, in which progression that you're going to move. That's what we have here. I can provide something here outside here that says counter, just to do an increment. So by default, our counter should be whatever is in the horsepower. That's our horsepower. So that I can then do my element style is equal to the counter plus plus. Or I can do my counter plus plus outside, just for this to be clearer to you guys, and then append it with my pixels. So that's what is happening here. So based on the horsepower, that's going to determine how your car is going to move. Okay, let's go ahead and give it a try. Let me remove this. And once you call the move, now we don't really need to specify a parameter for this anymore. You can see that immediately the car starts, it jumps to the beginning. So you don't want it to jump to that beginning side. It jumps to the horsepower. So I can have that fixed. I want them to start at the same time and increase their speed progressively based on the power that they have. So I want to do that by saying the default value is 0. I'm going to do let our horsepower is equal to this dot horsepower, so that instead of doing counter plus plus, I'll do counter plus my horsepower here. And the reason why I'm not putting this dot horsepower here is because this is running outside of this class. It's gonna give us not defined issue. So that's why we're putting the variable inside here and we are using it inside here. So when we have this done, we can then give it a try. Let's say when we have it with the same horsepower, let's do Lexus.move. You can see that our car is moving. While the car is moving, let's create another vehicle, that's Jeep, and let the Jeep move. So we can see a difference there. They are moving at the same speed. So I want to change the horsepower for the Jeep to be 2 or 3. So you can see the rate at which the Jeep is moving. It's moving faster than that of, the Lexus. So this can be what you can use maybe in a car race to determine how fast you are moving based on the kind of car that was selected. Thank you for staying to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on bell notification in order to be notified when we release new videos. See you in the next one.